Dads, what was your don't tell your mother moment? Mine started when I was 11 and found my father counting cash on the workbench at 6 in the morning. He heard me on the step and didn't flinch. He kept counting, and when he finished, he folded the stack and said, "Don't tell your mother, and in about a week, you'll find out what it's for." That was the whole deal. No explanation. I said, "Okay." We didn't have money. My dad did HVAC, my mom worked doubles at a call center, and there were winters we ate a lot of rice. Cash on a workbench was not normal in our house. 9 days later, he shook me awake before sunrise and said we were running errands. We came back that afternoon towing a boat. 16-foot aluminum, faded green, torn seat, an outboard that did not run. $700, which he told me the way you'd confess something in church. He didn't bring it home. He pulled into his friend Perry's place and backed it into the far end of a hay barn, and that's where it lived for 5 years. "Your mother would take my head off," he said, "so this is ours." Almost every Saturday after that, we told her we were helping Perry with fence. We were not helping Perry with fence. The first year, we never put it in the water. We pulled that outboard apart on a tarp, and my dad taught me what every piece did. Impeller, plugs, fuel line, water pump. My hands smelled like gas for 4 years. It started for the first time in October when I was 12. I remember exactly what that sounded like. After that, we ran it on a reservoir 40 minutes away where nobody we knew went, and by 13, I was driving it myself. But my dad was strange about the rules, and back then I didn't understand why. Vest on before I stepped off the dock. Kill switch lanyard clipped to me every time, even idling. He'd throw a cushion in the water without warning and make me come back around for it. He'd cut the motor and have me talk through what I'd do if it wouldn't restart. He made me swim once in October in a vest, just so I'd know what it felt like to be in the water and not panic. I thought he was being a hard ass about a $700 boat. Meanwhile, my mother spent 5 years hunting for that money. She went through statements. She asked me directly a dozen times if I knew what he'd bought. Once she asked if he was gambling, and I felt sick, and I still said I didn't know anything. I kept it every single time. Then I turned 16, and the school announced a spring fishing tournament. 2-person teams, bring your own boat. I asked my mom if I could enter with my buddy Thomas. She said no before I finished the sentence. I pushed, and she said something I'd never heard. She said I'd never been in a boat. I didn't know the first thing, and people who don't know what they're doing die on the water. Then she told me about her brother Danny. He was 17. He and 2 friends took a boat out on a lake in 1994, and it swamped, and he was the only one not wearing a vest. She was 14. She answered the phone. I sat there with all of it in my mouth and couldn't say a word, because saying it meant my dad had lied to her for 5 years, so I dropped it. Then I brought it up a week later, and again, and she got angrier every time, and I couldn't tell her why I wouldn't let it go. It finally happened on a Sunday. She was at the sink telling me to drop it for good, and I heard my father come in from the driveway. He stood in the doorway a second, then walked in and said, "He can run a boat better than anybody I know, including me." She turned around slow, and he told her all of it. The $700, Perry's barn, 5 years of Saturdays, the outboard we rebuilt on a tarp. Then he told her the rest. He said he'd never let me touch that motor without a vest and a lanyard. He'd thrown cushions in the water 100 times and made me get them. He said he'd taught me that way because of Danny. He wasn't raising a kid who was afraid of water. He was raising one who couldn't be killed by it. My mother didn't say anything for a long time. Then she cried, and then got her shoes. We drove out to Perry's, and she stood in that barn with her arms crossed, looking at a faded green boat. My dad reached into his jacket and handed me a folded envelope. Inside was the title. My name was on it. He'd put it in my name when I was 14. "You kept that secret 2 years longer than I would have," he said. "It's yours." My mother came to the tournament. She wore a vest the whole time, sitting in the bow with white knuckles, and she never once asked me to slow down. We didn't place. She still talks about that day.